Now that we have our sound inside of the program and everything is set up, we can actually edit it a little bit. And I want to give you a few options here, but we're not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to trim it down a bit. So you can preview it just by moving the little tracker. Sorry, this little red one at the top is the tracker. You click over here, you hit spacebar. You can hear what it sounds like. You'll notice that if you try to move it, it'll snap to the grid. So the first thing that I recommend doing is just turning off the snapping if you want the extra control. You can leave it on if you prefer that. But the snap enabled button, just click that. And so now you can actually stretch it exactly. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, let's say that we want to control the pitch. Like right now when I listen to the fire, it's very high pitched and maybe I just want to make it a little bit lower. One little handy hotkey, if you try to drag the end of this is just going to trim it off the end. But a really handy hotkey inside of Reaper is just to hold down Alt, the Alt key inside of Windows, and that will give you this little hand when you mouse over the edge, and this will actually stretch the sound or compress it instead of trimming it. You see what's happening there? So again, I'm holding down Alt and click and dragging on the end of it. And let's say if I stretch it outwards, it's going to take longer, and therefore the sound should get a little bit deeper. But it's not going to exactly work that way, and I'll explain why. So I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. So if it takes longer to get from here to here, it should be a slower, deeper sound. But it actually sounds the same. It actually sounds a little bit garbled. Now the reason is because it's doing some auto adjusting to try and counter the stretching of the sound. To turn that off, you right click your sound right here and you go to Item Settings, Preserve Pitch when changing play rate. We don't want to preserve the pitch. We want to allow ourselves to stretch it out and make it a little bit lower. So now if we turn that off, and again, I clicked that, so now it's a toggle. If we play it now, see how it's a little bit lower? And again, you can get really complicated with this. Sound editing is a whole field. I just want to give you one little tool that you can use for adjusting sounds, just so you understand the concept. And then lastly, we're just going to trim the sound off a little bit. You see this is almost 16 seconds. Let's say that it's a looping fire effect and we really don't need that much time. So I'm going to trim this down to maybe a little under 10. Let's just say right at 10. Or, if you had a triggered sound effect, like let's say a gunshot or a footstep, you might want to trim off the beginning to get rid of that little empty space before you hear the sound. You want the sound to actually have effect and have our little volume play right when the beginning of the sound starts. So if this is a footstep, I would trim off the beginning and move it forward. Anyways, you can trim a sound just by dragging and dropping the end of the clip. So now if we do this, we've edited the sound slightly and we have trimmed off the end. And in the next video, I will talk about how to actually save this out.